Super Rugby semi-finals are upon us, folks. The Blues will head down to Christchurch to take on the Crusaders. The Brumbies will head down to Hamilton to take on the Chiefs. Can either of these away sides pull off what would have to be a record-breaking win? Or will it be a Crusaders-Chiefs final down in Christchurch in a week's time? Because remember, Crusaders have moved up to be the top qualifier. The Chiefs are the second qualifier, seeing as they dropped last week's game to the Blues. The Blues are the bottom of the four remaining teams. And the Brumbies, if both the Blues and the Brumbies can get away wins, the Brumbies would be the ones to host the final over in Canberra. We'll go through the squads which have been named, some stats on the players and the teams. You guys can let us know your thoughts on how this week's games are going to go. Friday, 7:05 down in Christchurch, Crusaders taking on the Blues. We hope for a much better crowd. With the Blues coming to town, that should be able to draw out the Crusaders faithful, because nothing they like more than putting the blade into the Blues and knocking them out of the competition. I'm sure nothing would bring them more joy. Maybe a few Blues fans head down as well. Admittedly, last week's weather was pretty poor, and the result was on the cards for the Reds, and it kind of played out in a predictable fashion. But Blues Crusaders, sometimes these games have been horrendously lopsided to the Crusaders, but there's been some big ding-dong battles between our two sides as well. Fingers crossed this is one of those years where it is a close one. But the Crusaders, 30 games unbeaten at home in playoff matches in Super Rugby. That's the record that the Blues would have to break. So it would be massive if they could get it done. Big time underdogs for mine. The Crusaders have named a very, very stable lineup. They are without Samaiti Williams, who is going to miss out this week with a knee injury, which is unfortunate because their scrum was dominating last week against the Reds. So George Bauer steps up at loose head. Taylor and Newell still there alongside him. Scotty Barrett and Antonio Chalfoun round out the tight five. Chalfoun's been a big tackling engine in this Crusaders forward pack this year. 14 tackles from him against the Reds last week. He was their top. Blackadder Christie and Leo Willie. Leo Willie's got some massive work rate around the park as well. Blackadder did get himself yellow carded last week, but as long as he's fit, that guy always adds value. And then, Tom Christie is usually among the top tacklers for the entire season, not just per game. Hotham was sharp last week. He's still partners Rehana in that 9-10 combo. The Blues will have to watch their little dinking kicks through. But then also that man, David Havili, who kind of like Rico Ioane, divides opinions as to whether you love him or you hate him. Havili put in 7 kicks through, which I think was the top Crusader last week. We're putting boot to ball from the hand. So, yeah, that guy's ability to find space in the backfield is also something the Blues will have to be mindful of. Braden Enor is his midfield partner, Fihaki Reese on the wings, and then the danger man Will Jordan there at fullback. 6 defenders beaten last week. That guy is a proper dangerous. On the bench, Sykes, Martin and Calder are the 2 props, so it's slight rejigging of the prop replacements. Jamie Hanna is back in, and the 3 backs are still Preston, O'Connor and McLeod. For the Blues, a whole heap of tackles last week in that first half from the Blues. Fusi Tua had 16. Renata had 14. These are your 2 starting props for the Blues this week. But it's scrum time, not just tackle time. These guys will need to stand up. Riccatelli is the starting hooker for this one. Tupolotu and McConnell are the second row. Choate, Papali'i and Satutu the back row. So there's a heap of tackling in that Blues team. A lot of guys with really big engines on them. And then Satutu is probably going to be asked to carry a bit of that ball-carrying burden because he was the Blues' top carrier and top run-meter guy last week against the Chiefs. It's usually one of your backs. It's usually your fullback who gets a bunch of easy meters, but it was bloody Satutu last week against the Chiefs. Christie and Barrett, the 19 combo. Barrett will looking to pull off a bit of magic himself. He's been known to put a wee dinking kick through, as we saw last week. AJ Lamb and Rico are in the midfield. Lamb's been having a big old season, and Rico's been spending a fair bit of time on social media again. Boy, you better believe he'll be putting out some posts on Instagram if the Blues could get an unlikely win. Caleb Clark, who's recently just re-signed to stay in New Zealand Rugby, he is on the left wing. Conceded like 3 penalties last week, so we'll need to watch his P's and Q's down in Christchurch. Talea is there on the right wing, and then Zahn Sullivan comes in at fullback, so expect to see a bit of big old booting from him as well, I would imagine. The bench is unchanged. Josh Berry was the guy from the bench last week who got that match-winning try at the death. So we'll see if he can add some spark when he comes on. Stats-wise for these teams, like I mentioned, the Crusaders' scrum was strong. I think the Reds conceded 11 penalties last week, of which 6 were to their props. So if the Blues are going to have any chance, at least parity at scrum time, especially from the bench as well. At times it's been the bench replacement props that have been found out by the Blues, but I mean, it's Tatvau and Jordan Lay, so I back these guys to at least kind of hold their own, but we will see. The Crusaders might have other ideas about that. The Blues goal kicking was 100% last week. The Chiefs was not, and the Blues won by a point. So again, you feel like the Blues, if they are going to pull off something down in Christchurch, will need to have that kind of same record. Take every single chance you can get. The line-out was 89% as well, which is solid, but could be a wee bit higher. Predictions-wise, both the bookies and the Rugby Forecast algorithm are saying Crusaders by 5. So predicted to be a closer one than many people would imagine. The next one's the Chiefs up against the Brumbies. The Chiefs will be looking to shake off the disappointment of last week. They really should have put the Blues to the sword in that first half. And the Brumbies, they've got a lot of high try scorers in this side, both in the forwards and the backs. They get a little bit, I think, erroneously categorised as a side which can only score from mauls or from 5-metre tap and goes, but they've got some players in the side. Chiefs, Ollie Norris, Tokiaho and Dyer. That is one change in the front row with Norris getting a start this week. Akoi and Va'i in the second row. Both guys had to make a lot of tackles last week. 17 from Akoi, 20 from Va'i. They were the top two guys in the Chiefs tackle count. Finau, Jacobson and Satiti. That's a bit of a rejig back row. Jacobson's back fit, which is good news because remember he missed out last week, and then Satiti trusted with a start this week rather than that kind of impact from the bench. Backs-wise, Ratima and Demak will be looking to, I guess, just be a little bit more secure with the ball because both the Blues and the Chiefs missed some chances last week. They'll be looking to improve there. Tupaia is back in the midfield, which is good news at 12. Rona has been Mr. Consistent there at 13. The only Chief try scorer last week, he's at 13. Narawa on the right wing. Leroy Carter, who has 9 tries this year, on the left. And then Sean Stevenson there at fullback. He won't want his Chiefs career to come to an end just yet. Jared Prophet and Jimmy Tupou are in to the side. There's no Josh Lord. Remember, he got a concussion last week, so still out. Simon Parker also, unfortunately, out with an ankle injury. Gideon Rampling, who was really solid last week, drops to the bench. For the Brumbies, pretty steady as she goes. I think it's just the one change to Declan Meredith on the bench. Otherwise, an unchanged starting 15 for the Brumbies. I mentioned some try scorers. Billy Pollard has 10, so you do have to watch out at maul time from the Brumbies. Alan Alalatoa has 8. Incredible from the big man. Again, you've got to watch out for him at close range. He is having a season. But then the backs, Corey Toole, 9 tries. Andy Muirhead, 9 tries. And Tom Wright's been setting them up for fun. So the back 3 of the Brumbies are proper dangerous. There's some real good work to come from the likes of Hooper and Frost in that second row as well. And Tui Lima with the big carries, so he'll be looking to go toe-to-toe with Satiti in that regard. Lolosio and Lonergan, the preferred 10 and 9 combo, so back after Lolosio, he missed a few games with injuries, but came back at the right time for the Brumbies. And then Ikitau, also one to watch in the midfield. He's been a real spark in that Brumbies backline. And yeah, fortunate that they don't have to make too many kind of changes. Stats-wise for these sides, the Chiefs line out against the Blues was 64%, which is awful. They're going to need to be better this week for sure. 72% first half possession against the Blues. Not a single try to come from all that. And then they had to do a lot of defending in the second. They'll be looking to be much more clinical this week. The Brumbies, best line out in Super Rugby, but last week struggled a wee bit, 78%. They'll be looking to up those numbers against the Chiefs because I don't think, someone mentioned this in a live stream, but I don't think a Kiwi team has ever lost a playoff match in Super Rugby on home soil to a non-New Zealand side. So the Brumbies would have to be record breakers of their own to get this one done. You figure they'll have to take their chances. They did against the Hurricanes, man. 6 turnovers, 1 to 0. Brumbies ruck, very solid. They pull off some very good numbers there. But they are the underdogs. The TAB, the bookies, are saying the Chiefs by 11. And the Rugby Forecast algorithm is not quite as emphatic, saying the Chiefs by 8. James Dolman will referee the first game. Nick Berry will referee the second. You guys let us know your thoughts. Can you see an upset win coming from either of these sides? What does your heart say? What does your head say? Heart maybe Blues, says nobody except us Blues fans. And Brumbies, that'd be the two underdogs. How do you guys who aren't Crusaders or Blues fans go for this one? I'm sure you don't want either of these sides to win, but one of them is going to make the final. And can the Chiefs finally find their mojo under Clayton McMillan before he leaves for Munster? Still a few days till these games get played. If you want to see this guy take a train 1,000 kilometers and get offered some sweet, sweet, flaky cakes by a random Chinese lady, check out that video. That's 2 Cents on Tour, which is this guy, but not talking rugby. But I think I was wearing some rugby kit. You guys take care of yourselves, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.